Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am Attorney Lorna Kapunan. I am your MC for this afternoon. I actually don't know why I'm your MC because I have been told to behave, so this is going to be a very boring afternoon. SharePHIL Summit 2016 is on the topic Creating and Sustaining Value Through Principled Corporate Stewardship. And this is being presented by your organization, SharePHIL, which I'd like to share with you has the core values of faith. So do not lose faith in our country and our government. Faith stands for fairness, accountability, independence, transparency, and honor. That is SharePHIL for you. And on behalf of the Board of Trustees, I would like to call this summit to order. Please rise now for the invocation to be led by Ms. Marivic Españo, Chairperson and CEO of PEA Grant Thornton and SharePHIL member, and then please remain standing for the national anthem.
Let us place ourselves in the presence of our Lord. Lord, we thank you for gathering everyone today for the SharePHIL Summit. Guide our hearts and our minds in the spirit of fairness, right thought, and speech. Fill our conversations with your grace and truth. Impart your supreme wisdom upon us on our activities so that our affairs may reach a successful conclusion today. Thank you for being our source of guidance. Amen. In the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit.
Thank you. You can now be seated. Before I call on our chairperson, Evelyn, I just want to share trivia about our national anthem. Recently, your Congress passed by unanimous vote, no one abstaining, to make it a criminal offense. Listen, you can all go to jail if you do not sing the Bayan Magiliw, quote unquote, with fervor. What does that mean? Maybe you should shed a tear or two. And it should be 4/4 beat. And the fine is 100,000 pesos and imprisonment of 6 years. That is not a joke. It is the first bill where there was no opposition from anyone in the House. So that is where your taxpayers' money is going, to idiots. My opinions are not reflective of my board, nor of the management of this hotel. To deliver the welcome remarks, may I call on the chair of SharePHIL, who is also the president and vice chair of this hotel, Philippine Hoteliers, Inc. Before I welcome her, I must say that I'm very proud. Evelyn here broke the glass ceiling in the male-dominated Management Association of the Philippines, where she was elected the first woman president. Please welcome fellow Towns member, Evelyn Singson.
Good afternoon to our honored guests, Jaime Augusto and Fernando Sobel de Ayala, our venerable guru of Philippine business, Mr. Washington Sisip, members, distinguished members of our panel, Joey Lim, CEO of Metro Pacific, and Francis Estrada, President of ICD. Honored guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning, good afternoon. This young organization, a toddler by comparison to other organizations, is hosting its 4th summit today. As in past years' summit, the Shareholders Association of the Philippines, better known for its acronym SharePHIL, aspires to bring you a truly memorable and intellectually stimulating learning experience. Also, an entertaining afternoon compliments of our MC Lorna Kapunan. Last year, we had the father and son tandem of Oscar and Federico Lopez, who factually related how the Lopez Group of companies prospered or suffered with the changes in the country's political landscape. Many of us, young enough to experience martial law, know how the fortunes of the Lopez family vanished during those 20 years. Then, when the EDSA revolution brought about a change in the country's leadership, their companies recovered, grew, expanded, and diversified to many areas of business. Mr. Oscar Lopez, the patriarch of the family, was candid, straightforward, and minced no words in his discussion of how their family and businesses went through ups and downs as the political climate changed. Mr. Federico Lopez, representing the next generation of the Lopezes, did not weigh on politics, but instead shared the vision, strategy, and future of the Lopez companies. The team impressed us with their resilience, tenacity, and sense of purpose. We are sure that the summit helped achieve SharePHIL's goal of bringing the Lopez companies closer to its public, as shown by the interest of the audience during the open forum, where the Lopez father and son responded frankly and heartily to the questions on the floor. So today, we decided to outdo ourselves, as we are privileged and honored to bring you two of the most respected, most admired, and good-looking gentlemen who are at the helm of one of the most trusted names in the business world. The brothers Jaime Augusto, Jasa, to his friends and colleagues, and Fernando. Together, they are at the helm of the Ayala Group of companies. Having Jasa and Fernando in the same forum is a tough act, and we will admit we had to be persevering and persistent to get them to accept our invitation. For this, we have to thank Jimmy Ismael, the president of Ortigas and Company, and our member, who we threatened, cajoled, and threatened to kill if he did not get them to commit. Killing is fashionable. Having placed their bets in our country, the Ayala Group is a microcosm of the Philippine economy, with interest in public works infrastructure, utilities, telecom, real estate, healthcare, electronics, hospitality, education, and many more. With the summit's topic, Creating and Sustaining Value through Principled Corporate Stewardship, SharePHIL could not have chosen a more qualified pair of speakers. Their reputation is untarnished. The Ayala brand requires no explanation, and the name Ayala immediately flashes in the public mind the attributes of trust, quality, and professionalism, an image the envy of many. The Ayala narrative spans nearly 2 centuries. Their stewardship of the Ayala companies carried over 7 generations. Through time, the Ayala Group has earned numerous awards and citations for good governance and responsible stewardship, not only in our country, but also from international recognizing bodies abroad. We are lucky to hear their first-person accounts of how the Ayala Group of companies and the Ayala family have successfully steered their organization to where it is today, and how Jaza and Fernando have successfully transfused their DNA into the blood of the organization. Their forefathers could not be any prouder. But before the summit begins, let me talk to you a little bit about SharePHIL. Among the ASEAN countries, the Philippines ranks at the bottom third in terms of the standards of good governance. Capital market is very thin, where less than 1% of our population trade in the stock market. The population, by and large, shy away. We at SharePHIL want to do something to improve our standing among the ASEAN countries and encourage more participation in the markets from a wider base of investors. After all, in the ASEAN, we are second only to Indonesia in terms of population size, and thus much of our potential to widen our investor base remains untapped. Most of the stakeholders in companies are generally well-organized and well-represented. The directors through ICD, management through MAP, employees through unions, creditors, suppliers, and others. But there is no organized body to represent small shareholders in publicly listed companies. The small shareholders probably outnumber all other shareholder groups, but they are not properly represented, and this is a void that needs to be filled. Thus, SharePHIL was formed to be an organization that speaks on behalf of small shareholders, the minority group in terms of voice, but the majority in terms of numbers. Its advocacy, the protection of shareholders' rights, is one of the pillars of good corporate governance, and it is just as critical as all other measures of governance. SharePHIL's espousal of shareholders' rights will be its contribution to the improvement of our country's ranking. Through financial education, SharePHIL hopes that the young will understand how the financial markets work so that in the future, these young people's potential to save and invest can be tapped and directed to formal channels of investment. On the other hand, we also engage with listed companies and together devise ways to improve their relationship with smaller shareholders. Some ways we can achieve this are by encouraging shareholders to attend company events such as annual shareholders meeting, persuading companies to be receptive to shareholders' inquiries. SharePHIL endeavors to regularly attend annual shareholders meetings to see how it can suggest ways of making this a better channel of communication for improved investor relations. Likewise, we observe and monitor company decisions and actions to be sure that they are fair and not prejudicial to any group of shareholders. We are very impressed and very happy with the size of today's crowd. Offhand, I would attribute this to the magnetic drawing power of Jasa and Fernando. It is not often that they accept speaking engagement together, and our many students from colleges and universities do not get this chance. And in that regard, I would like to thank some trustees of SharePHIL who sponsored students to attend today's seminar. So the ladies from Miriam College, where are you? Can you give a big hand to Ms. Cora de la Paz Bernardo for sponsoring your attendance today? And of course, the ladies from Assumption. Where are you? Can you give me a big hand for sponsoring? If we convince our young audience today to become wise investors tomorrow and join in our country's march to progress, we would have achieved our purpose. Thank you very much and enjoy your afternoon.
Thank you very much, Ms. Evelyn. Another big round of applause. She's one person who does not accept no. So when I was asked to MC and was told that the two brothers are here, I said, when I write my memoirs, it will not be about my controversial cases. It will be about my photo op with the two of you. Anyway, to give us an overview of this summit, please welcome Summit Chair and SharePHIL Treasurer, Mr. Ramon Fernandez, President and CEO of Metro Pacific Tollways Corporation, and now he is President, Tollways. Now he's President and CEO, tama? No. CEO of Maynilad Water Services, a Master's in Business Management from AIM, and Business Industrial Engineering from the best school in Taft, De La Salle.
Thank you, Lorna. SharePHIL Chair Evelyn Singson, President Francis Lim, distinguished speakers, Mr. Jaime Augusto, Mr. Fernando Sobel de Ayala, fellow SharePHIL members, student participants, friends from media, guests, good afternoon. When SharePHIL was formed in 2012, our intent was to protect the investor through education and shareholder activism. We recognized that such engagement was necessary because an enlightened investing public is key in developing our capital markets. With the Philippine market growing at its current pace, we needed to empower investors and uphold the culture of good corporate governance, one that strikes balance of power between the inside and the outside shareholders. SharePHIL strives to promote this advocacy to a wider audience through the holding of this annual summit. Today's event will be our fourth. And as in previous ones, I'm happy to note that we again have exceeded our targets. Since we began holding the annual summits in 2014, we have managed to fit your illustrious lineup of speakers, among them PLDT and MPIC Group Chairman Manuel Pangilinan, the former Finance Minister Cesar Purisima, Ms. Teresita C. Coson, and the father and son team of Mrs. Oscar and Federico Lopez. You will find that today's summit will be just as edifying as the previous ones. If we featured the father and son tandem in 2016, this time around, we invited brothers. Mr. Jaime Augusto and Mr. Fernando Sobel de Ayala will be sharing with you their take on creating and sustaining value through principled corporate stewardship. We are definitely honored to have them with us today. Also lending more meat to today's discussions will be our distinguished panel speakers, Mr. Francis Lim, Chairman of the Institute of Corporate Directors, and Mr. Joey Lim, the President and CEO of Francis Estrada, the Chairman of the Institute of Corporate Directors, my apologies, and Mr. Joey Lim, President and CEO of Metro Pacific Investment Corporation. Nahalo ho kasi, Francis Lim yung presidente namin, Francis Estrada ho yung speaker, tsaka si Joey Lim. Halo-halo yun. Dalawang Francis, dalawang Lims. With this exciting lineup of speakers and topics, I expect an afternoon of stimulating, engaging, and exciting discussions. Ultimately, by holding this annual summit, SharePHIL is able to spread its advocacy and raise the necessary funds to sustain our education, research, and shareholder relations and representation programs. I would therefore like to thank you all for your participation. I also wish to extend SharePHIL's deepest gratitude to our event sponsors. Our diamond sponsor, San Miguel Corporation, our platinum sponsors, BDO, Energy Development Corporation, LT Group Incorporated, Metro Pacific Investments Corporation, and SM Investments Corporation. Our gold sponsors, Ayala Corporation, Meralco, and PLDT. As well as our silver sponsor, RCBC. Thank you also to our various bronze sponsors, donors, and our contributor, CLSA. Special mention also to our official media partners, ANC, Bloomberg TV Philippines, BizNews Asia, Business World, Philippine Daily Inquirer, Philippine Star, and TV5. I also would like to publicly express my gratitude to our hardworking staff. Pwede mo papasukin sila? Papasukin natin sila. Miss Ada Mabayad, Miss Lynn Angeles, and Miss Abby Benaventura. So to all participants, thank you for supporting SharePHIL's advocacy of promoting faith to the investor. Magandang hapon po and good day.
Thank you, Mon. We shall now go to the heart of this summit. And our first keynote speaker, ladies and gentlemen, has been introduced, but let me just add a few, because sayang naman yung twiniter ko at ginugel. He was born, I'm sorry, he is younger than me. He was born March 6, 1959. He is married and has 4 kids. Although you know that he is chair and CEO of Ayala Corporation, the oldest and one of the largest conglomerates involved in real estate, financial services, telecommunications, water, electronics, power transport, education, and healthcare. We should also know that in the international arena, Our guest speaker, Jasa, is chairman of Asia Business Council, and he is the Philippine representative to the APEC Business Advisory Council. I'm also very pleased to sit with him, where he is our chair in the World Wildlife Fund. We are trying hard. We cannot save the Philippines, but we can save the world. Ladies and gentlemen, Jasa.
Thanks very much, Lorna. Evelyn, congratulations also to you and your leadership for SharePHIL. I had not realized that this had been a development that came out of your leadership as well at MAP. And to you, your officers, Francis, Mon, congratulations, and thank you also on behalf of Fernando and I for this invitation. To the other members of the head table, Wash, who's been a great source of inspiration to both Fernando and I, Joey, Francis, Cora, we've all worked together, Kathy, in different ways. It's just a pleasure to be here with all of you. It's not that Fernando and I don't like to come out together. We actually enjoy it. It's much more pleasant when we're together. It's just that we divide up our work and basically one takes the lead on something, the other one backs off and takes a rest. And so that's why we always end up. But we couldn't say no to Jimmy. So here we are, the two of us together. Anyway, in the spirit of a partnership, we've divided up our presentation into two. So I'll start off with some opening remarks, and thank you for this invitation. And Fernando will move on and discuss, I guess, how my framework leads on to the governance framework that we have in Ayala. So it gave us a chance to think a little bit about things and sort out our stories. So in that sense, it's also been useful to us. So thank you for this opportunity. So hopefully I can start with just a brief history of our own family's history in ensuring the continuity and relevance of a multi-generational business from the perspective of two seventh-generation stewards, Fernando and myself, and of a business that we're proud to say has been doing business now in the Philippines for over 183 years. I'll divide up the stewardship journey into three parts. I'll just start off with a very brief history. I'm sure many of you already know the history of Ayala. The principles that we believe contributed to the success and longevity of the company, and hopefully how we are also reinventing ourselves to keep our edge and remain relevant to society and the communities we serve. And from there, Fernando will take that basic set of principles and how it has led to the governance framework that we have today. Let me start with a brief history of Ayala, although many of you do know it. The company started back in 1834 as a partnership between Domingo Rojas and Antonio de Ayala. They pioneered various businesses, from the first commercial distillery in the Philippines to agriculture and banking at the time. And succeeding generations claimed their own pioneering pursuits, such as the first Manila streetcar service. I think not everybody fully knows this, but out of some of those initial businesses of the Ayala Group were spun off companies that then became major names in the Philippine corporate environment to this day. Meralco was actually a product of the first streetcar service. It eventually evolved as a company and became the Meralco that we know today, and the distilling business actually ended up becoming the San Miguel that we know today. But some of these businesses, together with much of Metro Manila, as we all know, were destroyed in World War II, and it was at that point that Joseph McMicking, who was married to my great-aunt Mercedes Zobel, saw post-war reconstruction needs as an opportunity to create a novel master-planned urban center here in Makati. And through his efforts, what was once swampland became the country's premier business district, and also included, as you all know, commercial and residential areas. By the 1960s, Ayala, we like to think, was recognized as one of the country's successful real estate developers. My father and another uncle had taken over management by then. And we like to believe that they introduced greater professionalism as we transitioned from a family partnership into a corporation in 1973, and then listed in the stock exchange in 1976, which then brought higher governance standards. This is a topic that I've often discussed with Mona Hermosura, our corporate legal counsel, but one major reason why I believe the Ayala that you see today modernized from the past was actually the fact that it became a corporation from a partnership. Very few people have thought about that. Even I hadn't thought about it that much. But I always wondered when I joined Ayala in 1981, why is it called Ayala Corporation? The corporation was kind of a part and parcel of the name. Now we just call it Ayala. And it was only after thinking about it for some time that I realized that my Uncle Joe McMicking and my grandfather, Alfonso, that transition that moved the institution from a partnership, which had been its legal basis since its founding in the 1800s, to a corporation was a very big deal in their minds, and actually set the framework for both the growth of the company and the governance standards that we have today. So that move alone to a limited liability corporation was a very big deal. And I'm sure that there were many other institutions that were partnerships, of one kind or another at the time. But that was a big deal. And then moving on to 1976, I like to think it was probably one of the first family groups to then become a listed corporation. So that moved to a limited liability corporation and then into a listed company had far-reaching effects, I like to think, on the Ayala that you see today, and began to set the standards, as you were saying, Evelyn, for the governance standards and the growth and leadership that the company has today. The second point I wanted to highlight, after that very brief history, is how Fernando and I tried to make a distinction between the business of business and the business of family. As we reflect on our history, we do find insights that explain how the business sustained itself across multiple generations through economic and political cycles. I guess what I offer now are my perspectives as a manager of a family-controlled but professionally managed company, and as a family member and an owner as well. These are two roles that we have kept separate in the past 20 to 30 years, making a distinction between the business of business and what we call the business of family. Let me just start with the business of business. We realized very early on that we needed to have a sharper focus on quantitative results and metrics for the business to succeed. The business could not be compromised by unreasonable family needs or interests. It had to be run in a highly professional manner with clear business objectives that were defined by the industry environment at that point in time. On these points, we tried to hire the best professional teams to run our different businesses. And there are only two family members who are holding senior roles today, and that would be, of course, Fernando and myself in different positions across the group. All chief executives and management positions, however, are filled by professional managers across our group. They're all, as you might know, and many of them are here, highly educated. We like to think well-trained and have a wealth of business experience, and we're happy to empower them to make a great number of the business decisions within the group. I like to think that Fernando and myself provide leadership on the boards of our companies and participate in the major strategic, financial, and management recruitment decisions. Let me now move on to the business of family. As family members and owners, I do believe it is our duty to ensure that the business survives, succeeds, and grows. We need to keep the family ownership structure stable and the family unity strong as a major stockholder group. This is the only way we can move on from one generation to the next. There are a few principles that have guided us over the years as a family, and I'll just mention them briefly. The first is the stewardship of a family legacy. We try to ensure that new generations know that they're not merely owners, but are also stewards of the business itself. It is important to teach each new generation as early on as we can the difference between ownership and stewardship. Ownership is a right of possession. Stewardship is a fiduciary role that you have as an individual. We try to do this by educating them on the family's history and what the company has evolved and achieved over the years, and the roles that it has played in the national development agenda of the country. We hope that this will instill pride and a sense of responsibility to preserve and build on the legacy of the family through their own contributions in the future. The second, and this is no stranger to all of you, is instilling a strong work ethic. Family members need to understand that they must work for something to deserve something. It is always easy to fall into the notion of being entitled to something without needing to work for it, because of sheer birthright, and I think that's a problem that a number of family businesses end up with. Emphasizing the importance of hard work not only builds character, but also precludes feeling of entitlement. And I believe that these are standards that we have in all our family lives and all our children. We do try to get them to strive for educational achievement and push next generations to excel in anything they do, whether it's in the family business or not. While they are encouraged to work for the business on occasion, they also have to prove their worth like anybody else. The third is stability and unity within the family structure, which is important in ensuring the business continuity of the institution. We like to nurture our children, like all of you, with the right values and strengthen the relationship by constantly bringing family groups together. Family unity is critical for business continuity, and at the heart of this is careful and constant nurturing of this community by inculcating the right values in them. Family bonds must be strengthened constantly in order to bring families together. And we strengthen relationships between siblings and cousins by getting together on many occasions, both on a formal and informal basis. A fourth is inculcating a strong sense of